Hey guys, welcome back to Hit Up Rugby League. It's not me, Connor, and Liam this time. We actually have a guest, and it's 261 game NRL player, Michael Gordon. How are you, Mike?
Very good. Thanks for having me.
No, yeah, it's
Yeah,
awesome to get an interview. We sort of struggle while the season's going on to get current players, so it's good to get some past players as well. So thanks for coming on.
No, I can understand. Yeah, sometimes, especially this time of year, full of commitments and all the media, and some teams are winding down the end of the season, so sometimes they can be a bit time poor.
yeah, most definitely. Like what we like to do at the start of each recording is we like to do a segment called the set of six. It's just six quick fire questions. So I'll just ask you whatever comes off the top of your head is your answer. All right.
Sweet.
All right. Favorite fast food?
Mexican.
Oh, that's a good choice. Favorite favorite music artist?
I can't pick one. I like too many genres.
Fair enough. Fair enough. NSW or Queensland?
New South Wales, of course.
Oh, sad. So, predictions for the 2020 or 2022 premieres.
Oh, it's a tough one. There's some teams coming
Mm.
good at the right end. I'm gonna go for the Roosters.
Oh, nice choice. A fan of the set of six again? Or six again?
Yeah.
Six
Yeah.
again?
Oh, I don't know. It's a different rule, so
Mm.
I'm glad it wasn't in when I was playing. I know that much.
And bring back the Biff, yes or no?
Oh, you'd like to, but it'd just get too messy, I think. So it's good that there's nothing in it, but especially like you see a good Origin game, you want to see a little bit of Biff, but it's you've got to clean up the game, and
Yeah.
it's probably the right call.
Most definitely.
Yeah, sweet. So what we do to start off with, we like to go through the journey sort of in periodical order, but not really. So we love to ask, did you have any role models growing up, and was rugby league your only sport, or was it the other sports that had you, like, you know what I mean? Like, was it just rugby league, or was there other sports that tickled your fancy growing up?
Oh yeah, no. So I grew up in a small town called Cabarita Beach, just near the Queensland border. Um, yeah, mainly surfing, skating, cricket, basketball. Played just about everything as a kid, as you do with your mates, and played footy on the weekends. And yeah, that was it. Just pretty much played everything. But surfing, and still is my favorite thing to do.
Mm. Yeah. Now you're a really good goal kicker. So did you have any inspiration growing up? Like over here in New Zealand, if we look at rugby, we like the likes of Dan Carter. So did you have anyone you looked up to growing up?
Well, speaking of New Zealand rugby, I loved Andrew Mertens growing up, so former All Black legend.
Yeah.
But because my mum's a Kiwi, so she made us go for the All Blacks when I was a kid. So yeah, I think just as kids, you'd go down the footy field and everyone thought they were a goal kicker, and you always pretended that you were kicking for the grand final from the sideline and rarely got it. But yeah, I was sort of just like kicking. I was never much of the kicker in juniors and stuff. It was just something that with
Mm,
a lot of practice sort of come along.
Yeah,
mm.
people like to talk about routines of goal kicking. Did you ever have routine growing up, or is when you went through the game, or was there anything you had to do when you kicked?
Nah, and that was probably why sometimes I was a bit inconsistent because I tried to keep the same routine, but when you're kicking the ball, you want to watch it going through the post. But the main thing is, keep your head down, try and keep the same routine. And yeah, you see some, like say Nathan Cleary, his routine's pretty identical every time, and I always try to keep the same walk back and setup and everything, but it's more of the mental game in the middle of a game, especially like you're not so hard kicks. All you're thinking is, oh, don't miss this. So you just sort of have to. That's when you have to really focus and just go, all right, just head down and kick the bloody thing. So
Mm. Yeah, most definitely. All right, so moving on to your NRL debut in 2006 for the Panthers. How was the week leading up to that debut?
for me, it was perfect because I only got called up to debut the day of the game, so I didn't have the whole week of getting nervous or anything like that. I was actually having a shower to go down and get ready to play reserve grade, and literally got called up like 2 hours before. So for me, it was probably the best way to debut.
Yeah.
But the only thing was I didn't get to I told my family and that, but if I had the whole week, they all would have flown down and done all that sort of stuff. So yeah, it was for me, like in terms of being nervous and stuff, it was the best way to debut. But yeah, at the same time, it would have been nice to have some family in that there.
Was that because of an injury, or was that planned? Because we hear a lot about today that they plan it. They like hide that a person's on debut. Was it a plan or?
Oh no, it certainly wasn't planned. I think someone was under an injury cloud and then got ruled out that afternoon. And I know what you're saying, like they do plan it, but like if it was planned, I would have known all week and still would have been preparing. But I literally was in the shower and got told that I was playing. So it was probably ideal.
Yeah, so just looking at some of your stats here. So in 2009, you ended up kicking 23 consecutive goals for Penrith. How does that feel to make like an accomplishment like that? You like consistency and all that you were talking about before?
Yeah, that was a funny year because I ended up kicking at like 94% or something like that for the year, but I missed a big chunk of games because I had to have ankle surgery. But I remember it was like I missed 4 kicks for the whole season, and the 4 kicks I missed were the tries that I scored. So it was like that's a bit of a random stat for you.
Yeah, it's crazy. We actually like a lot of people when they talk about that 2010 round 24 game against Souths where you got 30 points. What was
Yeah.
that like? Just that everything sort of went your way that game, or how does that feel?
Yeah, it was a weird one because we were up 40-0 at halftime, so we were obviously playing really well, and never even thought of the record because I remember I missed like an easy kick right next to the post like early in the game, and then I know I kicked like a few from the sideline like later in that half, and then I think I scored on full time under the post and obviously kicked the goal from in front, and that's what gave me the record. But it was never even like you don't even it doesn't go through your mind during the game about a record. It wasn't until after that I was getting interviewed that someone told me that I'd broken the record. So.
So you didn't like have it in the back of your mind before that you were kind of close, or
No, well, I knew I'd scored 2 tries and kicked a heap of goals, but yeah, at the time wasn't really thinking of maths in the middle of a game, So it was like, and then it was like even the try I scored like on full time, it was like a fluky try. Someone sort of flicked it out their ass and then passed to me, and then I sort of just beat one to score under the post, sort of thing. So I was not even close to the record, and then the 6 points sort of put me over it. So.
Yeah. So another club record you got was the most points in a season in that 2010. And some people say like, oh, points are easy, you just got to kick the goals. But I assume you still have to actually score tries as well. Like, how many tries do you remember you scored that season?
2 for the regular season, and then we obviously had 2 semi-finals, and I think I finished at like 272 or 270 for the end of the year.
Yeah, you
So
did.
and then even me points in a game, like Nathan Cleary's beat that already. He'll smash every record at Penrith, so.
Yeah.
Like especially breaking a record only like a couple years into the club, that must have felt really good and put a lot of confidence in yourself to knowing that you can stick around and like play your game.
Yeah, for sure. Because even like sort of 2006, 7, 8, and even parts of 9, like I wasn't even first choice goal kicker, So then to sort of go on a run like that, and then obviously get the point scoring thing. It was that sort of helped establish me as a good goal kicker sort of thing. So
Yeah. That 2010 obviously finished off with a New South Wales debut. How awesome was that to play for Origin? Everyone dreams of it. How cool was that?
Oh, it was amazing, and even for me, it was a dead rubber. It was game 3. It was when Queensland had won 8 in a row or something outrageous, but for me, like the whole week in camp, playing against Thurston, Cronk, Lockyer, Greg Inglis, like that Queensland team, that was just amazing.
Yes. So you were talking about some big names in the Origin games, but you also played with some big names in their NSW, like the likes of Paul Gallen. And I've heard that some people love him, some people don't like him, or maybe it's you don't like playing against him. How did you find playing with him?
Oh, and people, whether they like him or hate him, he's a competitor and never gives up. And as a teammate, he's when you're running out beside him, you know what you're going to get every week. So as a teammate, you like him in your team, and then I suppose when you're playing against him, you don't like him. So
Yeah. Going back to that Queensland team, like you said, it was the best team ever. Like, what was the step up between playing club and then playing Origin? Because people say it's that massive step up. Did you find that?
yeah, I remember about like maybe 10 minutes into the game, I was like, I can't last a full game. It was that quick. And then you sort of, I don't know, you obviously get your second win or adrenaline or whatever, but it was just one of them things, the speed and the intensity, and because there's you're playing with all the best and against the best players, I suppose there's not as many errors, there's hardly any missed tackles. It's just there's just no stoppage in it really, and it's just
We'll have to do it another day.
Yeah, so for fast forwarding to the next season, so 2011, you were only able to play about 9 games until you got that ACL injury. How, because a lot of athletes find it especially hard to recover from certain injuries, like ACL is a big one. How did you find the recovery period?
For me, it was the hardest thing was, like I said, I just played Origin the year before, and I was probably in better form in 2011. And I think it was the weekend leading into Origin that I got injured. So while I was disappointed, I was no guarantee of getting picked, but obviously disappointed to me season being over. But the actual timing of it wasn't that bad, because I was obviously in the season, sort of got to rehab the whole season, had a break at the end. And then by the time we come back for preseason the next year, I was at full fitness. So I got to have a full preseason under my belt, which certainly helped going into the next year.
Yeah. One thing that I found interesting about your career is that you played around 150 games at fullback and around 100 on the wing. Like, what's that like, having to shift between them all the time?
I suppose the big difference, or especially these days, is you look at the wingers, like they're all 6'6" and 120 kilos, and they're like two extra props out on the sideline. Like the best teams have big wingers that carry them out of trouble, and I'm certainly the opposite of that build. So again, I look at the game today and I'm like, I couldn't play. Like, I'm sure I could play wing, but I'm like, I'm not the sort of winger that you would want these days. Too small and too slow now that I'm a bit older. But it was funny because I'd never played wing or fullback my whole career. And then I debuted in the centres at Penrith, and then played mainly wing, and then sort of got shifted to fullback, and then really enjoyed it because you're obviously a lot more involved at fullback. So I was like, if they said you're playing front row, I wouldn't have cared. It was just playing first grade. So
yeah. So moving on to 2013, you ended up signing with the Sharks for a 3-year deal. How was the time at the Sharks?
I loved it. Obviously, the first year I was there was it was interesting because of that whole Asada thing that happened, a couple of years before we got there. But that was the year it all come out. But in terms of like being at Cronulla, for me, I loved it because it was right on the beach. I grew up at the beach. We had a good team. We played really well all year. We made the semis. I think we finished fifth, and actually played really well. I think we won the first week of the semis and then lost the second. But that was a game we probably should have won. And we had a good team, and we were building into a really good team. So,
yeah, we've had Shane Flanagan on like a couple months back. What was he like as a coach? He told us there was a bit of a hard taskmaster and stuff. What was he like?
Oh, they're all hard taskmasters to coach these days. So, oh well, that's it. You got to try and control 30 footballers. That if you're not a hard taskmaster, you're not going to last long. So, yeah, no, he was good. Every coach is different in their own style, and he had his style with like the sort of old school hard nosed approach. But players responded, and like I said, we had 1 year which was poor there because of all the stuff that happened, but we had 2 years where we were, right up to it, and should have made the grand final potentially both of them years. So
Yeah, so you mentioned that you had a variety of coaches. Because you've played for 5 different teams, especially in NSW as well. Like out of all the coaches you had, like what's the most like you've learned from? Like who's the most you learned from?
well, obviously, like Bellamy, what he's done at Melbourne, he was a New South Wales coach at the time. Even though that's a different environment, but you could just see like his level of detail and work commitment and that sort of stuff, and that's why Melbourne are the club they are, is because of Bellamy, and then
Yeah.
I think I learned off every coach I had, and then obviously the older you get, the more I'd absorb it, sort of thing. So when you're young, you're just like, oh, I'm young and bulletproof and I can do anything. And then as I got older, I was like, no, I can actually learn a lot from these people. And say Trent Robinson from the Roosters, like I learned more probably in 1 year from him because I was older as well than I did, my whole career really, because I actually started listening to what they were saying and sort of, putting it into practice really.
Yeah. You had the experience when you're at the Roosters. Sorry, I'm skipping over the Parramatta. Sorry, Parramatta fans, I'm skipping over that. You played in that Anzac Day game, like in St. George for the Roosters. What was that like, that whole experience of the game? It looks awesome, the atmosphere.
Oh man, it's up there with one of the best games I've ever been involved in, like the whole, because you watch it, it's the game I've watched, every year where, the whole Anzac tradition and everything that goes on with it is something that I've always been jealous as a player watching it, because you're like, I'd love to be involved in it. And then to get that chance, Sydney Football Stadium, packed house, and we won in golden points. So it was like a dramatic game.
Yeah.
If we had lost that game, I would have been devastated. So.
Yeah. So you at the end of your career, you were, I don't know if you know this, but you're the 14th most points in the NRL with 1,730. So that is quite a lot of points to have over your time in the NRL for 261 games. How proud are you of that achievement?
Obviously, super proud. Like I said, there was many years where I wasn't even goal kicking. So to be up there, it's good. Like I like doing these things because I've been retired for a few years now, and like my mates talk to me about footy, but I never really sit down and have a big chat about my career much anymore. So sometimes it's good to bring up the memories and take a trip down memory lane and all that sort of stuff. So when you hear those little things, it's obviously super proud of what I could achieve.
Yeah. Talking about a trip down memory lane, you played in the country versus city game a few times, and people say, oh, we should bring that back. Were you a fan of it? And obviously it was a sort of like a trial. What were your thoughts on it?
Oh, I loved it. And even growing up as a kid, loved watching it because it used to be a genuine trial for New South Wales and for Origin and that, and me being in the country team, like us country boys loved it, and I know talking to the city boys, they did too, but for us, we loved it, always playing out in the bush somewhere and doing the community thing and all that. But just anytime you get to play any sort of rep footy when you're playing with other players from different teams, different personalities, different coaches, everything, it's always pretty fun.
Yeah. And another representative team you did make the training camp for was the Kangaroos Formation in 2014. That must have been a different environment. How was that training camp experience like?
Yeah, it was actually really cool. I only got to do a few sessions because I had to have surgery, so I had to pull out of it. And not saying that was probably the one chance if I was ever going to make it would have been that year, because it was the year where I think there was 18 players dropped out, and there was yeah, so that, and again, hindsight's a wonderful thing, but not saying I would have made it. But if ever there was a chance, it would have been that year. But mate, I had the worst ankle that whole year. So as soon as the season was done, I pretty much had to book in and get it fixed. So
yeah, we'll get through a couple more questions before we have to say goodbye. You probably get asked this a lot. I know I used to actually know you as Flash Gordon, and obviously that was your nickname. Where did that come from? I never knew where it came from. Where did Flash Gordon come from?
Well, it started when I was in Penrith. Because I certainly now that I'm back home, like none of my friends call me Flash. I was never called Flash growing up because I was never fast growing up. And then when I went to Penrith, I was playing. I think the first games I played at Penrith were in the 7s or the 9s. They used to do like the preseason ones. And because I was quick, I scored a few tries. And Trent Waterhouse was the one that actually started calling me Flash Gordon. And then when I was telling me mum, she was like, the Flash Gordon movie, the one from the 80s, she's like, you used to watch that as a kid, like every day sort of thing. So that was a pretty cool little trip down memory lane.
Yeah, so to wrap up your career, you ended up playing, moving out to the Gold Coast to play for the Titans, and you ended up playing your 250th game for them. How was that experience to reach that milestone?
Yeah, it was amazing. So like I spent like my whole career in Sydney, and like I said, I grew up in Cabarita Beach. So for me, the Gold Coast is 15 minutes away. So I always wanted to try and get back here because when I first went down, there was no Titans or anything, so there wasn't a real opportunity to play for them then. So I tried my whole career to come back here, and it just so happened to be the last couple of years that I got a chance to come back. So for me, at the 250th game, I had a couple of school buses full of people up. Just had this whole section of the grandstand just of all my friends and family that I grew up with. So it was an amazing experience.
Yeah, and people say it's one of the best cities in the world to live in, just how nice it is. Is it actually as good as people say, the Gold Coast?
It's too busy for me. That's why I live down here. So where I live is literally just like a little coastal village. Even though it's getting busy these days, the Goldies, I like the peace and quiet. I like the open space. Being able to walk down the beach and there being no one around. I like that sort of stuff. So getting out of the hustle and bustle of Sydney, and even playing for the Titans, we built a house up here. So I lived in that, and I just traveled every day up to the Gold Coast, and for me it was like, this is my home and this is where I grew up, and I'm settled back in here now, and I wouldn't change it for the world.
Now you must have had a really supportive family, and you've got two kids. Are any of them interested in getting into rugby league or?
Not really. Like my son was playing. He played as a kid just because, as kids do, they play whatever their mates are doing. But he's not really interested in it. And it's probably the one thing where I've never tried to push him. Especially in footy. I'll certainly encourage, if he wanted to. I would take him down every day and kick the ball with him. But he's just not really interested. So it's like, I'm not going to try and force it on him. And my daughter, she plays netball, and she's actually got a grand final this weekend. So I'll have the pom-poms on for that and be cheering loud. I was actually more nervous watching last week in their semi than I have been like in any of my games in my career. I was chewing my nails. I was like so nervous on the sideline. It was intense, and it was only under 9s netball, So
Yeah. That's why people say not to get in coaching, because I could imagine that's similar. Like, you've played league and then you go into coaching and it's like, I could be better than these guys. Like, would you ever get into coaching or?
Well, I'm actually been captain coach in my junior footy team the last 2 years. So which has been great, and it's probably not as nerve-wracking as a coach because I'm still playing. But I told the boys this year, I'm like, I can't play anymore. I'm 40 next year. I'm too old to be playing footy, and but I'll still coach. I told them I'll still commit to the club. Like, it's my junior club where I started in 1990. And to be able to finish playing for the club I started at, for me, that was one of the most special things that I've ever done. So.
Yeah, so we see a lot of these retired NRL players getting into boxing. Would you be interested in getting into that in the future?
You couldn't pay me enough to get in the ring. I can't fight my way out of wet paper bags. So yeah, that'd be a
You
big
don't have
no.
a few grudges you want to settle out on the ring or anything?
Nah, mate, I'm a lover, not a fighter. So yeah, nah. I just honestly, even though everyone bags them for getting into it or whatever, like I take my hat off to anyone that jumps in the ring because I think it was Mike Tyson said everyone has a plan until they get punched in the face. So I don't want to get punched in the face.
Yeah, we've asked that question a few times. I think we asked Michael Witter, and he was like, "I'm definitely getting in the like." It goes one or two ways. It's either I definitely am or I definitely am not.
No,
Like,
you could not pay me enough money. Like,
yeah,
couldn't do it.
yeah, it's one of those things where I think a lot of people think it looks easy, but it definitely is
Oh,
a lot harder than it looks.
well, I've done heaps of boxing training, obviously with footy and that. But yeah, mate, as soon as you start getting punched and all that, it's just a whole new ball game. And yeah, mate, no, that's a no from me. So.
Uh, well, you have any more questions, Joshy, or should
No,
we
it's
wrap
been
up?
good. It's been long with a few technical difficulties, but I've really enjoyed this one. Thanks, Mick, for coming on.
Whereabouts
Yeah.
in NZ you boys from?
From
I'm
Wellington.
Oh, yeah.
I'm from Auckland.
Yep.
Yeah,
Yeah, my family's all from the South Island. So.
yeah,
Yeah.
we're actually I'm flying up busing up to the Warriors game this week against the Titans.
Oh, that's right. They're playing over there. Yeah, that'll be cool.
Yeah.
We've gone as a group a couple times, and it's been so sick to have home games back in New Zealand. It's been really cool.
Yeah. Oh, it's so good. You know what they had to do for so many years. I'm sure some of them weren't complaining living on the Gold Coast for a couple of years, but yeah, like having to relocate families and everything. Like yeah, it's amazing what they've done, and it's good to see them back playing over there.
Yeah, just one more thing. Just talking about all that the footy that's over here in New Zealand. I've heard a couple rumors saying that they should bring over more footy to New Zealand next year. Like they've mentioned the Māori All-Star Game versus Indigenous and Magic Round.
Yeah.
Do you think they should bring those sort of games here?
Oh, for sure. And then, I think it was before all the COVID stuff, like say the Bulldogs or Manly and those sort of clubs would take games to New Zealand, which, I think every club's got to try and take a game. Like obviously the Warriors will have their home games, but I think, especially those Indigenous rounds, Magic round, all that sort of stuff, that should all be over there next year.
Yeah.
Sweet, awesome.
Well,
thank you.
Yeah, thanks for your time, man. It's been a real pleasure, and definitely had some great times, although the technical difficulties. But it's been really good talking to you.
Mate, technology these days you can't win, but no, thanks for you boys. Like I said, having a little trip down memory lane is good because I don't really talk about much footy much these days. So like I said, it's good to relive certain things, and then you sort of sit back and go, yeah, shit, I had a good time while I was doing it. So so thank you.
Sweet, cheers. Thank you.
Too easy, boys. Take it easy.
So, see ya.